here with episode number 2 of the weekly Forex chart overview for next week. If you do like this video, please like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions or comments, anything that you want to ask me, reach out to me directly. You can leave a comment down below, or you can send me a message on Telegram. My Telegram contact information will be in the description below. Also, I will be posting these charts from now on a Telegram channel, which I will create later today. So if you would like to check out the charts, I will be posting links to all of these charts through a Telegram channel, which I will link in the description below. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Right now we're looking at EUR/USD on the weekly time frame. You'll see last week we did have a considerable amount of bullish momentum. However, we did not break the bearish engulfing candle from last week. We do have wicks to the upside. So this could really go, looking at just the weekly chart, this could really go either direction. I do anticipate that we will probably get a retest of the trend line up above. However, you'll notice that I have the 8 and the 21 EMAs drawn. We did get a rejection off the 21 EMA from the previous week, or the previous 2 weeks rather, and so we could see more bearish momentum through next week. However, we could see bullish momentum as well, retesting this trend line up above. Let's drop down to the daily chart. The daily chart is showing what we just talked about on the weekly chart. I have some zones drawn, horizontal line drawn, the same trend lines drawn as the weekly chart, and you can also see the deep crab pattern that was drawn from the previous 2 weeks. So you can see we have a triple top here. We ended the week with a bearish engulfing candle. So that leads me to believe that this week could probably be bearish as well. You will see that the 2 EMAs did not cross, so it is still bullish. Looking at market structure, that tells us that it's still bullish as well on the daily, and so we are really just waiting to see what price wants to do. If it breaks above this support and resistance line, then we're looking for a retest of the trend line up above. If it does not break that level where the triple top is, we're looking for at least a retest of this trend line down here, if not a break and then a continuation down. So really we can go either way. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart. 4-hour chart, as you can see, I've got more trend lines drawn. I've got some more zones drawn as well. And like we saw on the daily chart, we ended the week very bearish. We had that massive bearish engulfing candle. It did cross both the EMAs. Price is now below both the EMAs. So we're looking for, at minimum, a retest of this trend line that's drawn. If it breaks that one, you can see that it has a few levels to go through before it reaches that trend line that we were looking at. This one right here that we were looking at on the daily and the weekly chart. Same trend line drawn on all 3 charts. So we're just waiting to see what price is going to do, whether it's going to respect these levels and continue upward to retest this weekly trend line that we have drawn, or if it is going to really go bearish, like the triple top right here kind of is signifying. So it could really go either direction. Waiting on candlestick analysis and some breaks and retests to confirm that. Waiting on a break of structure to go bearish. So I would not be selling this really until, or confidently, I would not be selling this long term until we get a break in market structure, specifically a break in this trend line down here. You can short this scalping, but I would wait to do a swing trade until market structure is broken or this trend line down here is broken. And then looking for buys, I would not buy this until we get a break and a retest of this level up here. That's what it looks like for EUR/USD for this week. Alright, moving on to USD/JPY on the weekly time frame. We do have a Gartley pattern. As you can see, we have a break of this major trend line that we have drawn from last week. Last week was extremely bearish engulfing candle that broke through. I do expect to see some bullish momentum coming up and retesting this strong trend line that we have drawn before it continues down and completes the Gartley at this level, or around this level rather. We could see something along the lines of a retest and then followed by just a major drop, we could see periods of consolidation where it could take several weeks for us to see a retest of this trend line. It could continue and finish the Gartley before retesting this trend line. We can see a lot of different scenarios right here. I do expect it to go bullish at some point in time. It just might not be this following week. Let's drop down to the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you'll notice that the red pattern drawn, the Gartley drawn right here, is the red pattern that's on here, and then we have a blue pattern that is a crab pattern that is also relevant on the daily time frame that completes around the same level. So again, I do expect this to come up and retest this weekly trend line that we have drawn before continuing downward. However, we could see a completion of both of these patterns before we see a retest of the weekly trend line. So it really just, I expect to see a retest of this level at some point in time. It might not be this coming week, though. We could have more just straight bearish momentum and complete both of these patterns. Taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, you'll see that the crab and the Gartley are both on this 4-hour time frame as well. I'm going to continue doing that instead of redoing every single chart. I'm going to leave the weekly and the daily analysis on the 4-hour chart and then just add to it, if you will. So I've added a couple zones to this and some more scenarios. So like I said, we could see a slight retracement before continuing down. We could see a major retracement coming up and retesting this weekly trend line that I was referring to in the daily and the weekly chart before continuing down and completing both of these patterns. But both of these patterns do complete around the same level, so I do expect both of them to complete before we have any major retracement on UJ. Looking at the 4-hour market structure confirms that as long as we don't have a break of this zone that we have drawn right here, market structure will still be in a downtrend. We could see price come up and retest that structure level, which would be, again, this zone right here. If we do break that zone and retest it, then we're looking for a break of this lower high that we have drawn over here. If we do get a break of this lower high, that will lead us to a higher high. So we're just kind of waiting to see what market structure is going to do. Like I said, I do expect a retest of this weekly trend line before continuing down. However, that is not the only possibility. We could see just straight bearish momentum until we finish these patterns out. Just something to be on the lookout. Use good judgment, right? Use candlestick analysis. Wait for opportune entry points. Don't rush into trades. Just wait for your setup. Next up is XAU USD on the weekly time frame, otherwise known as gold. Looking at gold, I have one zone drawn above. Price is currently in that zone. The reason why I have this zone drawn is because we do have this triple top here with more respect over on this side of the chart, on the left side of the chart. I do have a few trend lines drawn as well, and a butterfly pattern that is almost completed. It will complete at the or around the top of this zone. If you do see a completion of this butterfly, I would not go bearish until it is absolutely confirmed, because if it breaks out of this zone that we have drawn and retests that market structure, that is a good sign that we will be going bullish. So even if it does complete this butterfly, I would wait for absolute confirmation before going bearish after this completion. But it is a relevant pattern, so I do have it drawn. Some scenarios, we could see a rejection of this zone that I have drawn next week and a retest of this trend line down here. We could see another bullish candle next week, in which case it probably would complete this butterfly pattern. Last week's candlestick was a bullish engulfing candle, which is a good sign for bullish momentum this week. So really we could go either way. Let's take a look at the daily chart. Same butterfly pattern drawn on the daily chart. We do have the bullish engulfing pattern, or candlestick, that rounded out the week last week. So that does signify that we do have some good bullish momentum. You will notice that I have the same zone drawn, I have the same trend lines drawn. I only added one other trend line. We could see a retest of that trend line before continuing bullish. We do have the double top right there. So it really just depends on what the very beginning of this week does. We should know pretty quickly where this where price is going to be going. So it's just a matter of waiting it out, really. If the week opens bearish, then expect at least a retest of this trend line down here. If not a break, then we'll be looking for a retest of this trend line down here, which is both of those scenarios just still fine for the completion of this butterfly and for bullish momentum. As long as market structure doesn't break, I'm still bullish on this. Just use candlestick analysis and Fibonacci, right? Wait for proper retracements on these levels. Now let's go down to the 4 hour and see exactly what we're looking at. On the 4 hour, I've got a couple more zones drawn where price could go, and the same trend lines are drawn. I didn't add a trend line right here, though you could if you wanted to. I think this trend line that I have drawn is more prevalent, so I'm going to rely on that one. We do have the double top that I was referring to, and we do have price going through the two EMAs. However, we could see a rejection of those EMAs. So it just kind of depends. We do have that extremely strong bullish engulfing candle right there. So I am still bullish on this. I want to see a break and a retest of this zone that I have drawn, and then a completion of the butterfly pattern on the other two time frames. But I feel good about gold this week, and so I am bullish on this. However, I'm going to wait. I probably will not sell this unless this trend line is broken this week. So that would be a break of structure on the 4 hour time frame, and so that's what I would be waiting for in order to sell this. But we'll wait and see what happens. Alrighty, next up is EURAUD. On the weekly time frame, we do have a bat pattern that was drawn last week as well. You will notice that now 3 weeks ago, this bullish engulfing candlestick is still the controlling candle for the weekly time frame. Last week was a doji. The week before that was also a doji, spinning top, whatever you want to call it. So it's we're just kind of waiting, which as I drop down the time frames, you'll see that that's really just consolidation on lower time frames. Adding in a butterfly pattern on the daily time frame that completes a little bit before the bat pattern on the weekly time frame completes. Just looking at this, you'll see that we really don't have much change between this week and last week's video. So I have this zone drawn. Price looks like it rejected that zone on the daily time frame. If we do see bearish movement this week, then we could possibly see a retest of this trend line. If it does break this trend line, as long as it does not break this zone that we have drawn down here, then it is not a break of structure, and we are still looking for bullish movement. If we do see bullish movement and a break and retest of this trend line and this zone, then the two patterns should complete. If not the butterfly, then the bat will or should. Or both of them should, rather. So let's go ahead and look at the 4 hour time frame. You'll notice that I have this consolidation box drawn, same consolidation box that I had drawn last week. It's just a continuation of last week's consolidation box. So I'm waiting for price to break out of this consolidation area. I have the two arrows, the break and the retest of that trend line that we see on the daily time frame. This is the same trend line or the zone drawn down here. If we do see a break of this zone, we'll see a retest of this trend line down here or a retest of the market structure down here, which I do not have drawn. But really, this is just a waiting game with EURAUD. We're waiting for this consolidation area to decide what it wants to do. Price has to break out of one side or the other, and I haven't touched EURAUD because it hasn't decided which direction it wants to go. So we're just kind of waiting to see what EURAUD is going to do, and like I said, I'm just waiting for this to decide which side of this consolidation box it wants to break out of. I am bullish on this though, because we do have bullish momentum coming into this. Flag patterns generally break out of the side that the pattern comes into. So this was bullish coming into it. We have an area of consolidation. We do expect bullish coming out of it, but price can do whatever it wants. So that's not necessarily the outcome. That's just what I'm anticipating, but I'm waiting for confirmation before doing anything with this trade. Alright, now we're looking at GBP NZD on the weekly time frame. You will notice that last week I did GBP AUD. This week I'm doing GBP NZD. That is because those two charts are very similar. They're not exactly the same. They don't trade the same, but they are very similar. So I bounce back and forth between them depending on which one I like more. And so it just depends on which one I'm preferring the setup on. And this week I am preferring GBP NZD, which is why I'm going to go over it. Looking at the weekly chart, we do have last week being another bearish candle, even though it's not engulfing. The previous week before that was an engulfing candle, engulfing bearish candle, excuse me. And so we're just waiting to see, are we going to get a retest of the zone, a break and a retest of this trend line, or are we going to see continuation down? Price has not gone through both of the EMAs yet, so we're waiting on that. And then the EMAs to cross in the weekly time frame. We're just kind of waiting to see what price is going to do in relativity to this trend line that we have drawn. The completion of the bat pattern is probably a number of weeks away. Market structure is still telling us that this is an uptrend. Right, we have the ultimate low right here, a lower low right there, higher low right there, higher high right there, higher low, higher high, and now we're waiting to see what price is going to do. Let's drop down to the daily time frame. We do have a crab pattern added to this. I'm sorry I didn't mark that, but this is a crab pattern that has been added to the daily time frame. The blue pattern and then the bat pattern in the red. Looking at this market structure, we do have a lower high right here that I wouldn't necessarily consider that on the weekly time frame, but on the daily time frame we do have a lower high. So now we're waiting to see, are we going to see a lower low, or are we just going to see the price stop right here and then continue its bullish ways? So kind of what we're looking for. I could have drawn a trend line right here, however I didn't. So if you would like, you can add the trend line to your charts. I've got the two trend lines that I had originally drawn on the weekly trend line, or excuse me, the weekly chart. So we've got the two zones, this trend line and this trend line, and then the two patterns drawn. We are honestly just waiting to see if price is going to break this trend line or if it is going to keep respecting it and continue its way down. As of right now, it is still a bullish trend, even though we do have this lower high. We're waiting for a complete break of structure with a lower low. So let's go ahead and look at the 4 hour. And now adding the 4 hour, I believe this is a bat pattern, and yeah, that's what this is. Excuse me for not being 100% sure. I've done a lot of charts the past couple of days, so I had to double check to make sure that the coordinates are correct. Yes, this is a bad pattern. You'll notice that I did have one small zone where price is respecting right now. So we're waiting to see if price is going to break below that and complete this bat pattern and then continue its way up, or is price going to respect this and retest this trend line and or break it. This is the same trend line that's drawn on the weekly and the daily time frame, and as you can see, the other trend line that is down below where price is, this is too zoomed in to incorporate that trend line. Like I said, on the weekly time frame, you can draw this trend line right here, which would show on this level, but you don't have to. That's completely up to you. We're just waiting to see if price is going to complete this bat pattern before continuing upward, or if it will continue upward. That's what we're looking at with GBP and ZD. Alright, now looking at GBP JPY, this is the start of the 5 pairs that the viewers would like to see. So the way that this works, and I don't know if I explained this very well in my last video, or if you've seen any of my social media posts, any post on Telegram that I have made, but the way that this works is the 5 charts that are the first 5 charts are the charts that I personally trade. Those are the charts that I prefer to trade. And so I do those every single week. Those will be consistently done. The second 5 charts will be charts that the viewers want me to do, or people involved in the Profit Society Telegram, or just people that reach out to me, right? And so I will take the charts that the most people want to see, and then I will apply them to the weekly videos. So this week, these next 5 charts are charts that were recommended through people that I've had conversations with, that people just want to see certain pairs that aren't my normal 5 pairs that I'm going to cover from week to week. These are those pairs. So if you do want to see a certain pair done next week's videos, either drop a chat or drop a comment in this video, or send me a message on Telegram. Again, my Telegram contact information will be in the description below, so you will be able to access that. Or you can join any of the Profit Society Telegram group chats, and I will link those in the description as well. If you want to get in contact with me, there are a number of ways to do it. Just to be aware. But now, looking at GBP JPY on the weekly time frame, I don't have any patterns drawn on this chart. I do, however, have this Fibonacci retracement drawn with the rejection of the 50 right here. So we do have a bearish engulfing pattern, or a bearish engulfing candlestick, excuse me, and that was from not last week, but the week before last. We do have a bearish continuation candle from last week. There is a trend line drawn right below where price is currently at, so we're waiting to see if we get a break and a retest of that trend line drawn, or are we going to see it respected and then continued upward. You will notice that I have a channel drawn with this. I don't draw many channels, but this seemed appropriate, so this is a channel that is drawn. Shows the clear defined trending upward. However, we do have this really strong bearish movement on this side. Let's go ahead and look at the daily time frame. You'll notice the channel is still drawn. Last week was all bearish, albeit some of the bearish candles do have large wicks. It was still all bearish last week. So I do anticipate price to reach this trend line and then kind of decide what it wants to do, whether it is going to then go bullish or whether it is going to break that trend line, retest, and then continue downward. I do have a couple of zones drawn where price could go, so we're just kind of waiting this out. I wouldn't trade this per se right this second. Let's go ahead and look at the 4-hour chart. So looking at the 4-hour chart, we do see that we did have a bullish engulfing candle towards the later part of last week. However, the EMAs are still showing the downward trend, and the trend line that has been drawn on the weekly, the daily, and now the 4-hour still is there. So are these two trend lines that we saw on the previous two charts as well. The arrows show you kind of where price could go, and then the horizontal line and the two zones drawn are relevant as well. So we're just kind of waiting. As I said, we're waiting to see what price does once it reaches these trend lines. I honestly don't have a preference with GJ right now, bullish or bearish. So I think that this is just a retracement. Honestly, if we go back, looking at this, right, we're getting this upward momentum. However, it is part of this downward momentum with the rejection of the 50 Fibonacci retracement level on the weekly time frame. Really, we could see a number of different things. We're just kind of waiting. We're waiting to see if this trend line gets broken to the downside. Then we are for sure going in the direction of the overall trend. Right, well, not necessarily the overall trend, because if we were to zoom out more, you would see that this is bullish coming into this retracement. So we're looking at multiple levels of retracements right now, and that's why we're zooming in more. On the daily time frame, this is a clear uptrend. Right, we have finally broke these. This triple top right here was finally broken. No break of structure though, so we have this lower high, excuse me, then a higher low, then a retest, then a higher low, then a retest, then a retest, and then finally the break of structure to the upside and a retest of market structure right here with this double bottom before giving a double top and then continuing up. So that's the reason why these zones are drawn where they are. Both of these zones are really well respected, and they're going down to the 4-hour time frame. You'll see that market structure is still relevant here as well, right? We're just getting a retest of this previous market structure down here, which is where price is at. So we want a break to the downside, which would also inadvertently break this trend line down here and then continue to the downside. That would be a good sign that this trend is going to continue downward. However, we could see retest of these previous market structures before continuing up. So that's what we're looking at with GBP JPY. Now we're looking at AUD USD on the weekly time frame. I have this major trend line drawn here that I don't know if I drew this last week or not, but I noticed this earlier this week, and so I'm just gonna add this in. This does look like a break to the upside and then a retest of this weekly trend line, and then we had that bullish momentum last week. So looking at the bullish chart, or excuse me, looking at the weekly chart, the bullish chart, Looking at the weekly chart, we do have this zone drawn where price does have to break through that, so it could just be a retest of that zone. However, it could also be a retest of this trend line. So price could go bearish or bullish, either way, really, in my opinion. So just something to be aware of, if nothing else. Dropping down to the daily time frame, you'll see that retest is more prevalent here. I also have a zone drawn above and below where price is. Price does look like it could be retesting this zone drawn. However, price did reject this zone down here, so I added some trend lines in for more clarity. And I know that this might be a little bit confusing, but the way that I interpret this is we have this double top right here, which is why we saw that bearish momentum at the beginning of last week. However, we also have this weekly trend line that I did say was broken and retested. And so I'm waiting for either this trend line down here or this trend line up here to be broken and retested. And preferably, if we're going to see bullish momentum, I want to see break in a retest of this level, and even more so for more confirmation, we'd be looking for this weekly trend line down here at the bottom to be broken and then retested. If it does decide to go bullish, what I'm looking for with that is I want to break and a retest of this zone up here, right? That's previous market structure. I want to see price break out and then retest, which is what is represented right here, before continuing upward. Going down to the 4-hour chart, you will notice that I have the same two trend lines that were drawn on the daily time frame. These two right here are drawn right here so we can get a better representation of what we're looking at. We're really looking for price to either reject this zone that I have drawn right here, which is based off of this point, or if it does reject that zone, we want it to break out of this trend line, retest, and then break upwards, breaking this previous market structure, that we have drawn right here. We do have a lower high right here. We do have a higher low right here, so market structure can go either way. We could see it go bullish and at least retest the structure up here, if not break and retest this zone that we have drawn up here. However, we could see the break of this zone that I have drawn and price break below this this trend line that I have drawn. If it does do that, that will more than likely lead to a break of structure to the downside. Right, we'd have this lower high and then another lower low. Excuse me. So either way, I can see AUD USD going. I think that this could be just a retracement before it continues bullish. However, I'd be ignorant to say that it could not break downward, that it only has to go bullish. So we are looking for either a rejection of this zone and then a continuation upward, or a break of this zone and a retest and then a continuation downward, breaking this trend line as well. So just be smart, wait for confirmation, use candlestick analysis. That's what I see for AUD USD. Next up is the DXY weekly time frame. DXY stands for US Dollar Currency Index. Basically, what we use this chart for is to understand the strength of the US dollar or the weakness of the US dollar. If you're not familiar with what the DXY is, or you've never heard of it before, drop a comment down below, send me a message on Telegram asking me to make a video specifically on explaining what I do with the DXY, why the DXY could help your trading, specifically your Forex trading, and understanding the US dollar strengths. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. Looking at the weekly time frame, we do have a bearish engulfing candlestick from last week. However, it is starting to reject this zone that I do have drawn, and you can't see it in this, but all of these zones are based off of previous market structure. These two zones are this zone based off of this point right here, and this zone down here based on these points over here. So that's where these zones are drawn off of. We could see a rejection of this zone or a break and a retest of this zone coming down to test this trend line. Let's go down to the daily time frame. Looking at the daily time frame, clear bearish market structure on the daily time frame, clear bearish trend. These are the same zones. These are the same zones that are drawn on the weekly time frame. We do have a crab pattern that did complete the week before last, rather. And so we're waiting to see this double bottom right here. We're waiting to see if this goes bullish or if it goes bearish. I could see it going either way, honestly. So we're waiting on a break of this trend line that I have drawn right here, if it's going to go bearish, and a break and a retest of this zone that I have drawn, if it's going to go bearish. I think that I said if this is going to go bearish, I meant if this is going to go bullish, it's going to break this trend line right here and retest and then go bullish. If not, we're going to see a break and a retest of this zone before going bearish. So let's drop down to the 4-hour time frame. You can see the crab is drawn right there. You can see I refined these zones a little bit. I added a couple other ones. So on the 4-hour time frame, we see clear triple bottom, clear rejection on each 3 times of this zone drawn. The completion of the crab pattern. We do have previous market structure labeled with these zones right here. There are a number of different possibilities with this right now. We could see bullish movement, retest this trend line, and then continue downward. We could see a retest of the zone again before continuing upward to the trend line. We could see a break and a retest of the zone to the downside. And finally, we could see bullish momentum up, break through this trend line drawn, and then retest and continue upward. Those are a couple different scenarios for DXY. Just something to pay attention to. I don't actually trade the DXY. I just use it as reference. So I just refer to the DXY to understand kind of what's going on with other USD based pairs. And that's why it's good to chart it up. You chart it up the same way you would chart up any other pair. And I just use it as strictly a referral. I don't trade this pair actual live trading. Like I said, I just use it for reference based only. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, drop a comment down below, and I'll answer all the questions that I can. GBP USD on the weekly time frame is next. We do have a bat pattern drawn. I do have one zone drawn and a number of trend lines drawn. So looking at this, last week we did have a bullish candlestick. However, it was not bullish engulfing. So we could see either another bullish candlestick this time, which would result in that bearish candlestick engulfing candlestick from the previous week being broken, which would confirm our movement to the upside. We could see, however, more bearish movement coming down and retesting this trend line that I have drawn. You'll notice that price did reject this this zone that I have drawn. We could see a double top in that zone. However, if it does break and retest this trend line to the upside, then we should see the completion of the bat pattern that I do have drawn. Dropping down to the daily time frame, you see that bat pattern a lot more clearly on the daily time frame. You see the retest, the double top of the zone that I have drawn, and we can see more clearly now the 3 trend lines that I have drawn. I did not add anything to this chart. This is strictly just the weekly chart, looking at it on the daily time frame, because it's pretty clear what we can see going forward. And so if we do see bearish movement out of the gate this week, then we will be looking for a retest of this trend line that I have drawn down here. If we see bullish movement out of the gate this week, we're looking for price to move back into this zone, preferably breaking and retesting this trend line before continuing upward to finish the bat pattern. If we do see a bat pattern completion, then we will be looking for some sort of bearish momentum coming at the completion of that bat pattern. But since it does break this weekly trend line, I do consider it, or I would consider it, to be going bullish on the long term. We could see a slight retracement at the completion of the bat before continuing bullish, such as a retest of this trend line after the completion of the bat, something along those levels. We're really just waiting to see what's going to happen this week, whether price is going to come up and retest this zone, or whether price is going to come down and retest this trend line, or break and then continue down to the next trend line. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. The 4-hour time frame, we do have a bat pattern that is bearish, right? Bearish from where price is. It's below where price is. And this bat pattern on the weekly time frame is bullish from where price is. So we can see either one of these. Both of them are still relevant as of right now. I added a couple more trend lines to this 4-hour time frame. The trend line up above, which is where the arrows are signifying, and the trend line down below, which is where the arrows are signifying, and then this one zone down here, which would make sense retesting market structure with the completion of the bat at these levels. So that is what I see for GBP USD. A couple different options depending on what time frames you're looking at, but with the 4-hour time frame, we're really just waiting to see which of these trend lines is broken before entering into any trades. And finally, the last pair of the week EUR JPY on the weekly time frame. We have three trend lines drawn, excuse me. Crab pattern that is completing above board prices, and two zones drawn, one above price, one below price. Looking at this on the weekly time frame, you'll notice that last week I did say that we had this break of this trend line right here. Very strong bearish engulfing candle from last week, and then another bearish candle from, a bearish engulfing candle from 2 weeks ago, and then a bearish candle from last week. So what are we looking for with this? We could see a number of different things. We can see a retest of this trend line. We could see some sort of retracement this week, coming up and retesting either one of these trend lines down here, or we could see more bullish momentum, bearish momentum coming down to this zone that we have drawn down here. I do expect some sort of reaction off of this zone. As long as we do not break this trend line down here, I will expect this crab pattern to complete. So that's what we're looking at with EJ on the weekly. Dropping down in the time frame, we have a couple of trend lines drawn right here. This is the trend line from the weekly time frame, and then I added this trend line for the daily, simply because we had this long wick right here and price lined up with it pretty dang well. And so we're looking to see if price gaps down or gaps up this week. I did add one more zone, just because that's where price was consolidating at, right? We had multiple retests of this area right here, and then price finally broke above it, retested again. Now it's broken back down, and price is currently sitting on these levels down here. So we're back in this consolidation area that we had from a couple of weeks ago, and price, like I said, is right back in that consolidation area. So if we do get a break of this trend line that I have drawn, I do expect some sort of retest because of how many days we stayed in this little small zone right here. But we could see just a gap up and then a continuation up, or a gap down, a retest, and then a down, continuation downward to this zone. Really, there are a couple options with EJ on the daily time frame. Let's go down to the 4-hour time frame. This are the two zones that I was talking about. This is that area of consolidation that we were in for a number of weeks. Price finally broke out of that area, retested that area a number of times, and then broke back into that area. And so this signifies what I was talking about on the daily time frame perfectly. I have this trend line drawn. If it does go bullish, it should break through that trend line and then come back down and retest. If not that trend line, then this trend line right here before continuing upward and breaking back through this zone. If it does go bearish, then we're looking for a break of not only this trend line down here, but this zone down here as well, and then a retest of that zone again. I said that both of these areas, both of these zones that are drawn are pretty strong, and so we should see retests of them because they have been respected so many times in the past. So regardless of which direction EJ decides to go, I do see a rejection, or a retest coming of whatever side it breaks out of, because market structure has been so strong with those two areas. So again, if we see bearish movement, break the zone, come back, retest, and then down. If we do see bullish movement coming at the beginning of the week, then we see a break of this trend line, probably a retest of either this trend line or this trend line down here, and then a continuation up, a break through this zone, and then a retest. Or we could see something where we saw for many weeks over here, or many days, over here, where we see price just bouncing around between these two areas. One of those is probably what's going to happen, more than likely. So that's what I expect to see with EUR JPY this week. So if you do like this video, again, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ask me questions. I will leave all of my contact information down below. Or if you don't want to go through Telegram, you can just comment on this video and ask me any question that you want to ask, and I will do my best to answer all questions and to incorporate anything that you want incorporated in the next video. Like I said, I'll do my best to incorporate those things that are requested. Thank you guys, enjoy your week, and I'm out.